We'll now move to 14B, which is the initial senior administration report on EPAR 02, and Executive Officer Bushel.
Thank you. And through the chair, we're pleased to present this report. There is a recommendation in the report which we'll deal with at the end, or we'll deal with now, but again, we voted on at the end. But basically, the only recommendation in this report is that the board authorize senior administration to conduct a pupil accommodation review based on the information provided in the attached elementary pupil accommodation review 02 initial senior administration report for the following schools: Fairmont Public School and Tweedsmuir Public School. And with respect to the policy, with respect to PARs and the policy, it's our policy to provide our students with accommodation which supports student achievement, safety, and well-being, ensures the long-term sustainability of our school system, identified opportunities for collaboration, facility arrangements with community organization, and manage our resources effectively. We're going to do all this in a manner that's well-informed, well-coordinated, transparent, and sustainable.
Through the implementation of the various changes from these studies, many schools will be able to provide more enhanced educational opportunities for our students, including a variety of different possibilities, including a wider range of programming and courses, availability of more specialized support services, some specialized facilities such as gyms, activity rooms, library learning commons, and general arts rooms. Also, there may be more sufficient enrollment to support sports teams and other extracurricular activities. They may have a school building that's in better condition than the one that is to close, and also greater accessibility features with respect to entry, movement, and within the facility and outdoor play spaces. With the community, it can give opportunities working together to create a consolidated school to help create a new identity and provide opportunities to enhance and respect the past and establishment of new traditions. As well, there may be a wider range of resources, an increased number of experiences to draw on, and greater diversity for school councils, teams, and clubs, and of course the updated venue for the community use as well. And the connectedness is a key part in the development of any school and at every school size as well, and that can be developed through the creation of a culture for learning, caring, and the strengthening of community school values.
With respect to EPAR 02, it's basically about accommodation in empty pupil places. The chart on the screen now indicates that with the Fairmont Public School, with the in-area students only, not including the holding zone students, there's 205 empty pupil places at the school, and the utilization rate be 42%. With Tweedsmuir, population in area only, be 160 empty pupil places, and that'd be at 65% capacity. For many years, the holding zone students have artificially inflated Fairmont and Tweedsmuir Public Schools enrollment. In 2015, in April, the board approved the newest Southeast London Public School attendance area, permanently accommodating the Fairmont and Tweedsmuir Public Schools holding zones upon the opening of the new school. The following recommendations are proposed to resolve the accommodation issues. The first one would be the students in the Summerside holding zones holding at Fairmont and Tweedsmuir are permanently accommodated at the new Southeast London Public School upon opening. Fairmont and Tweedsmuir Public School attendance area amalgamate, creating one regular track attendance area, and the Fairmont Public School and Tweedsmuir Public School students are consolidated into one JK-8 elementary school at the Tweedsmuir school location, and that the Fairmont would be closed and declared surplus. With respect to the PAR process, the Ministry of Education Pupil Accommodation Review Guidelines released in March of 2015 established expectations for all school boards on managing underutilized space. The Pupil Accommodation Review, or PAR, is a community consultation process required by the Ministry of Education. School closures and consolidations are to be discussed and also to be addressed changing demographics, enrollment, programming, and facility condition challenges. The draft elementary study prepared by the administration and presented to the board in April 2016 identified a number of issues around historical and projected enrollment, school condition and proximity to the students, and existing school model organization. Senior administration recommendation will allow for aligning the school community's enrollment with permanent, efficient, and sustainable student accommodation, at the same time enhancing an existing facility. When we determine the schools in a PAR, we have to ask the following questions. Have all the issues been identified as a priority of the board? Is the current situation sustainable? Does the current situation provide equity for all our students? Is there an opportunity to improve student learning and sustainability? And are there any potential facility collaboration opportunities with community organization? The proposed consolidation allows for the opportunity to invest in program needs, quality teaching and learning environments, and access to up-to-date facilities with appropriate space for the students. Included in the report are the school information profiles, or SIPs. This document is all based on 2015-16 school year data for each school in the PAR. It provides an understanding of the facility under review. It assists in the understanding of the context that surrounding decisions and to include in the specific schools in the pupil accommodation review. With respect to the SIPs, a number of information points are included. We'll show you the attendance area, the enrollment and utilization, transportation modeling of the existing transportation is in, school organization and staffing, a facility space template, facility profile, financial profile of the school, as well as the 5-year renewal needs proposed at the school. Will include the site and floor plans, surrounding land use and zoning, demographic data, residential development, and the community use profile, all included in the SIPs, which are attached to the report. With respect to the student accommodation with EPAR 1, on the screen now is the 2 attendance area, Tweedsmuir and Fairmont. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see the 2 holding zones with respect to the green and yellow, the green being the holding at Tweedsmuir and the yellow holding at Fairmont. Fairmont and Tweedsmuir Public School are located in the Hamilton Road, Jackson planning districts in the City of London. The established community has been in decline school-aged children since 2001 to 2011. Enrollment versus capacity is perceived as suitable, but the demographics have changed in the existing community of Tweedsmuir and Fairmont schools, and TVDs have challenges with low student enrollment once the holding zone students are removed. Summerside holding zones, located within the Jackson district, south of Thames River, growth continues and established since the 1990s. Students are designated and transported to 3 holding zones from this area, which is Fairmont, Tweedsmuir, and Princess Elizabeth Public Schools. Meadow Lily development is in this holding zone and is planned to be staged and revisited in 2017-18 by the City of London for servicing. The Summerside holding zones, with respect to Summerside holding zones, in the spring of 2015, the Southeast London Attendance Area Review was conducted to create the attendance area for the new Southeast London School. The permanent accommodation of these 3 Summerside holding zones in the new Southeast Public School was approved by the board in April of 2015. The mapping above shows now Fairmont and Tweedsmuir Public School, but it also shows the new Southeast London attendance area, which is proposed, and also the location of the site. As you can see, the 3 holding zones are encompassed in the new Southeast London attendance area, which this attendance area is actually part of Westminster Central Public School attendance area, which is located south of the 401. Looking at the enrollment versus capacity of the existing status quo, you'll see that the gray shaded area in behind is the OTG of the school, which is 800. And you also see the existing projected enrollment, which is the blue, and the green on top of that, which is the holding zone students come in. You see we're averaging in the 78 to 75% range going out to 2025. But when we remove the holding zone students, you'll see the capacity of this area of 800, and you see our projected enrollment hovering around the 53 to 50% range going out to 2025.
In Section 2, we're going to review the current accommodation details. Fairmont Public School was built in 1952 with additions in 1955, 65, and 85. Fairmont serves a population of 281 students from junior kindergarten to grade 8. There are 12 standard classes and 2 specialized classes for the deaf and hard of hearing. Fairmont Public School. Within this attendance area, 4 to 13-year-olds have decreased by 12% from 2000 to 2006 and further decreased 20% from 2006 to 2011. 81 single-family and medium-density units are currently circulated in this area. In 2012, the City of London created 5 land use options for the Meadow Lily area, with residential units ranging from 62 to 2,045 units. The City of London plans to revisit the secondary plan in 2017-18. As Kevin indicated, we're reviewing both the school with and without the holding students. If you're looking at the school including holding students, the capacity is 355. The October 31st enrollment is 281. Utilization factor is 79.15%, and there's an excess of 74 pupil places. If we remove the holding zone students and look at it again, the capacity remains the same at 355. The enrollment of in-area students only is 150. The utilization factor then drops to 42.25 with an excess of 205 pupil places. This graph indicates the status quo projected enrollment and capacity, excluding the holding zone students in this area for Fairmont. Each school has been analyzed financially by using administration, facility services, and IT to determine the cost per student. The board average is $1,416. The cost per student at Fairmont is $3,068.45, and that would be removing the holding zone students, so in-area students only. In the last 10 years, $85,000 was invested in renewal, $4 million is anticipated in 5-year renewal needs, and $7.6 million is the calculated school replacement value for Fairmont. The facility condition index for Fairmont Public School is 71%. Tweedsmuir Public School was built in 1959 with additions in 61, 65, and 1990. Tweedsmuir population of 384 students ranges from junior kindergarten to grade 8 with 16 classes. There are no specialized services offered at Tweedsmuir. Within this Tweedsmuir attendance area, the 4 to 13-year-olds have remained stable from 2001 to 2006 and decreased 8% from 2006 to 2011. Currently, there are no significant residential developments within Tweedsmuir Public Schools attendance area. Including the holding zone students, Tweedsmuir OTG is 458. The enrollment in October was 384. The utilization factor is 83.84, and there's an excess of 74 pupil places. Excluding the holding zone students, the OTG remains at 458. The enrollment of in-area students is only 298, and the utilization factor drops to 65.07, leaving an excess of pupil places of 160. This chart indicates a status quo projected enrollment and capacity of Tweedsmuir Public School, excluding the holding zone students. The cost per student at Tweedsmuir, excluding holding zone students, is $1,549.24. The 10-year renewal investment has been $541,000. The 5-year renewal needs have been $4.3 million. The school replacement value is calculated to be $9.1 million, and the Tweedsmuir facility condition index is 60%.
Moving now to the recommended solution. Senior administration recommends changes involve the consolidation of 2 elementary schools. Consolidation will allow the school community which is both viable and sustainable. By 2023-24, the total enrollment of the area students is projected to drop to 150 at Fairmont and 246 at Tweedsmuir. The utilization at Fairmont will drop to 42.2%, and Tweedsmuir will drop to 53.7%. Senior administration recommendations have been developed to address a long-term accommodation need to provide equity of education based on demographics, program offering, historic enrollment trends, location of existing students, and facility size condition. Therefore, the recommendations are that the attendance area of Fairmont Public School and Tweedsmuir Public School amalgamate, creating 1 regular track JK to 8 attendance area. That Fairmont Public School and Tweedsmuir Public School students be consolidated into 1 JK to 8 elementary school at Tweedsmuir. An addition and renovations be completed for student accommodation and program enhancement at Tweedsmuir Public School, and that Fairmont Public School be closed and declared surplus. With respect to the graphic on the screen now, you'll see the, with respect to the attendance area, and we have the percentages down below, which are yellow and green, which is less than 40% and less than 70%, the 2 colors. What we're looking for in our heat maps is the light blue and dark blue to get all our accommodations up above 80% for any consolidated schools. The new attendance area, which is shown on the screen now, is what would amalgamate the 2 existing attendance area for Fairmont and Tweedsmuir. and the holding zones would then be accommodated in the new Southeast School. The new school would have an OTG of 481. With respect to the Tweedsmuir educational opportunities to benefit learning, a library learning common, gymnasium, and activity room would be created. We've moved the FDK classrooms to the first floor, providing easy accessibility for the early year students. And in an renovated building, we would create a general arts room would also be created, as well as standard classrooms. We look now at the utilization enrollment versus capacity chart. With the removal of Fairmont Public School, you'll see now that the enrollment proposed with the accommodation now hovers in the 90 to 80% range, going out to 2025. The financial analysis of this recommended solution, looking at the four major areas of facilities, transportation, IT, and staffing, indicates an annual savings of $628,500 through this consolidation. The capital investment with respect to the addition and renovation is estimated to be $3.5 million. And it should be noted that the removal of the high and urgent facility renewal needs at Fairmont total approximately $4 million. The cost per student, again, is looked at with respect to the same cost centers of administration, facility services, and IT. As you see now, with the holding zone students removed, Fairmont is at $3,000 and Tweedsmuir at $1,500. The solution cost, or the recommended cost, based on our current cost for those three cost centers, would be $1,253, which is below the board average of $1,416 per student per year. Therefore, again, with respect to the cost per student, the current average cost per student currently in EPAR 02 is $2,057. The proposed recommendation average cost is $1,253.94, which is a savings of $803 per student per year with this recommendation.
Timeline and implementation. The proposed implementation, both new Southeast London Public School and the addition and renovations at Tweedsmuir are dependent upon Ministry of Education approval and funding of capital construction. The implementation of the recommendation to close Fairmont Public School and consolidate in-area students at Tweedsmuir is also dependent upon Ministry of Education approval and capital funding. The transition planning will be completed with consultation with parents and guardians of school staff. Looking at the implementation timeline by school, Fairmont Public School would close June 30th, 2019. The consolidated attendance area would take place as of July 1st, 2019, and the new accommodation would be opened September 1st, 2019. Community organization municipal input. In 2015, June 15 and 16th, our first annual pupil accommodation, community planning and collaboration opportunities meetings were held. As of September 16, the Board of Trustees approved to contact the listed community organizations. September 19, an email was sent to all listed community organizations within the Elementary Pupil Accommodation Review 2, identifying the names of the schools involved, any potential school closures, and any proposed student long-term accommodations. October 13 was the community organization deadline to provide TVDSB with any community planning or facility collaboration opportunities and any relevant technical information updates. The TVDSB has received one communication from the municipalities and community organizations who attend or were notified. Senior administration results in possible co-build opportunities at Tweedsmuir Public School. Beginning in December, our PAR calendar and timeline is the orientation meeting and post-determination meeting with community organizations. Between January and March, there'll be 3 PAR meetings, and between January and February, 2 school-level meetings. In April will be the final senior admin report, and in May, public delegation and decision by the board. The final senior admin report will be posted for public viewing in March 2017 and presented to the board on April 11th. May 2nd will be public delegations received by the board, and May 23rd, the board is scheduled to deliberate and make final decisions regarding EPAR 2.
We're back now to the recommendations that was included in the report, and the only recommendation senior administration has proposed tonight is that the board authorize senior administration to conduct a pupil accommodation review based on the information provided and the attached Elementary Pupil Accommodation Review 02 Initial Senior Administration Report for the following schools: Fairmont Public School and Tweedsmuir Public School. We'd be pleased to take any questions on the report.
Thank you. At this time, I'd be looking for a mover and seconder of the recommendation. Thank you, Trustee Jaffe and Trustee Bennett. Is there any questions for Executive Officer Bushel? Trustee Pupil.
I have a question, but first I want to remind you that we have a trustee on the phone, so a poll vote would be necessary.
A recorded vote. Thank you.
Yes, please. So my question is in regards to the map, although I did have to use my phone flashlight in order to see the little tiny map because you went through it really quickly. But I'd like to know, in that farthest corner at Highbury and Trafalgar, of the current Fairmont area. Yes, please. Yes. Bused, or are they walkers?
We don't have we have all the transportation included, but to say we can definitively tell if they're walkers or bus, we don't have that information
Is
today.
it in our binder?
We didn't do the walks, and we got the number of students, but we didn't get the proximity of which students, where the transportation areas would be.
The only reason I ask is my curiosity is whether or not they are, it looks to me like they are closer to Tweedsmuir. However, having been raised in this exact community, I know that that is it's a very lengthy walk regardless of like the appearance on the map there. So I'm just wondering whether we would be potentially looking at adding busing to what I believe now are walking schools.
Yeah. There is some in area transportation, other than the holding zones that STS has identified. We asked STS to give us in the SIPs the number of students that are bused, so on and so forth, for us, and the longest bus rides, shortest bus rides. So that's all in the information in the binders. We haven't got individual students or individual areas mapped, although we could do that. It wasn't requested by us to STS. I think again, there's a number of issues that STS goes through with respect to hazards, and again, walk distances. It's the path of travel. It's not as the crow flies, so to speak. So we can get that information for you, Trustee Pupil, but it's not available tonight as to what area is bused and not within the Fairmont area.
Trustee Bennett, did you raise your hand? No, sorry. Trustee Pupil, there's currently no one else on my list. Does Trustee Tidsill have a question? Okay. Trustee Goodell, did you raise your hand? I see, I'm seeing hands here. Okay, Trustee Jaffe.
Just a process question. And again, it's more for the gallery and people watching online at home. I guess the question is one of process. So as we move past this motion passes. So the trustees aren't making any decision tonight, but there'll be a report that comes back in May after public consultation. That'll come back to this report and final recommendations for the trustees to consider at that time. But I have a part B of my question. That's part A. I just want to make sure I'm describing the process appropriately.
That's correct. Tonight, you're just approving us to conduct the review. Once the review has been followed the process of our procedure, we will be then bring a report back, and in there will be actual recommendations with respect to consolidation and closures.
Just a follow-up question. So this is hypothetical. I didn't ask you this before the meeting, but if someone from the public would read the report and go to the first meeting, and they might think to themselves, well, this is a fait accompli, as we say in Quebec, that sort of the decision is made, the administration has a pretty solid plan. Would your response be you're still looking for public input and consultation, and if you're open to other ideas or suggestions?
Through the chair, The guidelines proposed by the ministry required the board to do this, to lay out the plan. I think in the past, the ARC process, there wasn't a lot of information, there was a lot of misinformation that started the ARC process. And information was given out per meeting, so on and so forth, out the whole package that people could look at, especially the trustees, to see if there's merit in studying this, in studying these schools. But definitely, again, senior administration is tasked with responsibility to provide sustainable accommodation and look at the projections and what we can, what we think is the best model from a student accommodation perspective. There's always a local flavor. There's always local insights and thoughts and comments that are worthwhile for us to hear. And that's why we want the process to start. We want to, again, get the school subcommittees formed, have our pupil accommodation review meetings in which we have an opportunity in a forum to not only present but also take questions. Some of them may have alternative recommendations. Part of the process is for the final senior administration report after it's completed is to hear what the school subcommittees have to say, what the community organizations, municipalities have to say. And at that time, we may want to amend or alter our recommendations to send to the board in April. With that report, with these recommendations or the amended recommendations, there's still an opportunity for delegations to the trustees before the final decision is made. So in no way is it a done deal. It's senior administration's best thoughts, best work on the future and how we could accommodate students in the most sustainable way, efficient way, providing program opportunities, enhanced facilities. But again, I foresee discussions with the communities. They may want to look at a different model. They may be, close Tweedsmuir, use Fairmont. There's all kinds of opportunities. And with respect to this case, they may look at a different attendance area, boundary adjustments, or even talk about different enhancements at the school that we're proposing. It's all on the table. It's all for them to make suggestions and to write a report, not only for senior administration to review and look at with respect to the recommendations we're proposing, but also for the trustees to review and potentially instruct, alter the recommendations that we're proposing to you as well. So I think that's a long answer, but I think it is a matter that we want the input. We have to float something out there. We have to put something on the table for them to review and discuss, and we go from there. Versus the other process was basically, we're thinking of closing your school and not really giving them a lot of information until the ARC process made its way through the process.
Is there any other questions from members? Trustee Pulhill?
I'm just wondering in regards to just the recommendation as to which school between the two would close. I initially thought, obvious, Fairmont students can fit into Tweedsmuir without renovations, but then I'm noting here that you are going to be doing some renovations. So I'm wondering then what other factors, because in knowing the two schools, Fairmont has a significant amount of property attached to it. It's, a lot of land, grass, trees, mature trees, and that kind of thing. So I'm not sure if it was a tough decision or there's clearly some factors that impacted you moving towards wanting Tweedsmuir to be the one that stayed open.
I think there's a number of things we discussed in capital planning and with the planning department when we looked at the, which school would we choose. Tweedsmuir is a little bit bigger, has more capacity or existing capacity in Fairmont. I think the renewal needs are not as great at Tweedsmuir as they are at Fairmont. The property is one that we want to look at. Being on Hamilton Road, it's a busy road. There is some safety concerns with respect to being on Hamilton Road compared to Tweedsmuir, just for access onto the site and whatnot, and knowing the location of the site. I think the Fairmont site, in the long term, it's a more valuable site for sale than the Tweedsmuir site, more options for development of that site, and that was in consideration as well. So we basically, it was just those factors. Not to say that, when the school subcommittees and the PAR process starts, that they may challenge some of those assumptions. And again, we can discuss that going through. If they're valid and true arguments, it could switch. But basically, that's what we chose. It was a fairly close pick-em type of call, other than looking at Tweedsmuir general location being more inserted into a residential area rather than being more on a commercial type of street, busy street, and access was probably the major factor in deciding Tweedsmuir over Fairmont.
And just as a slight follow-up to that, renewal, is it a possibility that renewal would be new HVAC, possibly air conditioning?
Again, in the past, when we do a renovation of a school like that, we do look at the improvement to the facility as well, the renewal of the building. We do propose the addition because their gym is not to our standard. We do want to move in all our recommendations to improve the learning commons, to move to the new model. We did want to move the FTK onto the first floor. I think that's just allow for the ease of the early year students. But at the same time, when we have to do those type of renovations, we're required by the building code to bring the building up to a certain standard with that amount of renovations, which require fire and life safety upgrades. One of the issues that we do have to provide is a new ventilation system to make sure it meets current codes. And usually at that point, we do the air conditioning ventilation system at the same time. It's not costed or funded at this time because it does come from the renewal budget. But if you recall in the past presentation, we talked about the 60-odd renovations addition projects we've done. We always take the opportunity to do the renewal of the building. It needs to be done anyways. It's cost effective to do some of those improvements while we're at the school anyways. And we're required in some ways to do certain things because of the building code anyway. So my answer would be, although I can't definitively say exactly what would be entailed, facility services would take the opportunity to improve the renewal or improve the physical structure, physical environment of the building. And that would include roofing, windows, so on and so forth. And we always look to improve drop-off, pickup, that type of thing. And I think our past resume of our projects can point to what we usually do, and it would be no different on this one.
And Trustee Goodell is the last one on the speakers list.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. I just hoping you can clarify something or maybe provide your thoughts on it. In the last presentation on the annual planning report, you talked about the 5 situations where the ministry didn't provide the funding. In this case here, again, we're coming back to the contingent on Ministry of Education funding. What are your thoughts around that?
Again, I think there's 2 ways of looking at this one with respect to the ministry capital funding, and it's contingent on it. Without the Southeast School being funded, we have nowhere to put these holding zone students, so Fairmont and Tweedsmuir has to stay open. I think what the ministry does want us to do is deal with empty pupil places, so they have to have some commitment that we will close one of these 2 schools to create the other pupil places, because they don't want a new school in Summerside and have 2 schools, Fairmont and Tweedsmuir, at half capacity. So I think in a way that they've identified to us that they want a more comprehensive business case identifying school consolidations in that area. It's a complicated issue because Summerside is really a growth area and we're holding students, but there is excess capacity in surrounding schools, not in their neighborhood, so to speak. So I think looking at it with respect to the potential closure of Fairmont and the removal of that OTG, coupled with the resulting capacity of 90% of that school is sustainable, and accommodation of plus or minus 500 students in Summerside makes a more compelling business case, and just let us build this school and we'll deal with the capacity at some time in the future. The addition and renovation to Tweedsmuir, again, the ministry recognizes that, and it has in the past funded, we need to do enhancements at schools with respect to consolidation where inadequate program space exists. So, and again, looking at the renewal needs of Fairmont, which ultimately the ministry will have to fund to repair versus taking it off the books and reinvesting it in a school. Again, that would be our business case and our play to the ministry to say you're removing $4 million of renewal needs from Fairmont and a facility. We're asking you to reinvest that money in an enhanced facility for all these students, which would improve programming, would be how we would phrase it to the ministry. And again, capital money's tight, and it's hard to, we have to fight with it with every other board in the province. But there is the school consolidation grant where the ministry has identified a funding source just specifically for consolidation projects, which this would fall under.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, Trustee Pulhome.
To you, Chair, could you offer the floor to Trustee Tisdale?
we've asked before. Is there any questions from Trustee Tisdale?
And I just want to reiterate, before we do get to a vote, I think we've had a number of, in the past accommodation studies, and this is a different process. And I just want to reiterate that this is just us tonight saying that, yes, we want to look at it and we want to look at the area. But I think when we look at what we've been able to do in other areas, we have to we owe it to our students from an educational standpoint to at least look at the potential educational improvements and facility improvements that could enhance their education. We have to keep an open mind about it all, but we have to at least look at the situation and evaluate it. And if we don't, then we're actually, I don't think we're being fair to our students or our communities.
Thank you. Any other comments from members? Seeing none, we'll call the vote, and there is a poll vote that was requested. So Supervisor Williams.
In terms of process and for the benefit of our new student trustee, I'll poll each of our trustees, and then I'll declare whether the motion is carried or defeated, and then I'll ask each of our student trustees to cast their vote. So Trustee Todd. Yes. Trustee Skinner.
Yes.
Trustee Schuyler.
Yes.
Vice Chair Reed.
Yes.
Trustee Polehill.
Yes.
Trustee Morrell.
Yes.
Trustee McKinnon.
Yes.
Trustee Jaffe. Yes. Trustee Hart. Yes. Trustee Goodall.
Yes.
Trustee Bennett. Yes. Chair Tisdale.
Yes.
The motion is carried. Trustee Subiats
Yes.
and Trustee Pupil.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion has carried. We'll now move to